honour for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After 8 years of this Liberal government, we're facing some of the most difficult economic times that our country has ever seen. And in this budget, the Liberals have decided to continue increasing taxes and spending without limit. And the budget contains $63 billion in new spending. That's an extra $4,200 of debt per household. And to add insult to injury, on April 1st, the Prime Minister's carbon tax increased. The carbon tax now adds 14 cents per litre, which will cost the average Canadian family over $800 this year alone, even after the rebates. Budget 2023 was an opportunity to give Canadians hope. But instead, the Liberals choose to keep their hands in the pockets of Canadians with more inflationary spending and more taxes. Conservatives cannot support this budget and will be voting against it. After hundreds of phone calls, in-person visits, contacts, emails with people from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, it's clear that the Liberal government is completely out of touch with Canadians. Liberals have no idea of the sacrifices that Canadians are making day to day since they came to power and they cut their secret backroom deal with the NDP. Savings accounts are being depleted. Credit cards are being used to purchase everyday items. Home ownership is now a pipe dream for future generations, and they will be on the hook for the Prime Minister's reckless vanity spending. After listening to Canadians, Conservatives had three key demands that we wanted to be included in Budget 2023 to restore hope to this country. First, allowing Canadians to bring home powerful paychecks with lower taxes and to scrap the carbon tax. With yearly increases to the carbon tax now in play, Canadians who are already in a desperate place are being squeezed again with some little left to give. Francis from Chatham, he reached out and shared his family's situation with me. So here are his words, and I quote, "We eat less, we go out less, and we are stressed," end quote. A University of Saskatchewan study reports that 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals, and Second Harvest reports that in 2023 there will be a 60% increase in food bank usage. That's a somber statistic. Mothers are adding water to their baby formula, and I've heard from people in my own riding, and this is sad, that some seniors are even resorting to eating cat food to survive. And how did Canada, a once prosperous nation, turn into a country where Canadians are going to bed with empty stomachs? This is what happens when you have a Prime Minister who doesn't pay attention to monetary policy. The government proudly proclaims that the budget includes a one-time grocery rebate, but newsflash, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's the GST rebate branded as a grocery rebate. What the Liberals fail to mention is that the rebate disappears thanks to their carbon tax. The Liberal government gives little and takes more in the same breath and expects people to be thankful for it. Canadians are seeing through this Liberal charade. Conservatives know that real people deserve a real plan to deal with the cost of living crisis, and that no serious plan will be coming until we form government. Speaker, restaurants, bars, wineries, distilleries, and breweries are being unduly punished by the Prime Minister's tax plan. The 2% increase to the excise tax this year on alcohol will negatively impact an already struggling industry. The temporary cap on the increase of the excise tax is only for 1 more year, and we can be certain that the tax will increase again after that. Conservatives fought to scrap this tax in its entirety. Unfortunately, there's nothing that the Liberals will not tax. Hardworking Canadians should be rewarded for their labour. Under a Conservative government, we will make sure that this becomes a reality again. Speaker, Conservatives also demanded a budget that would help bring lower home prices by ending inflationary debt and deficits that drive up inflation and interest rates. Last year, when Budget 2022 was tabled, the MP for University Rosedale said that Canada's debt to GDP ratio was Canada's fiscal anchor and must decline for the country's finances to be sustainable. If Budget 2023 passes, Canada will be without a fiscal anchor. Let that sink in. No return to a balanced budget, no plan on reducing our debt load. And according to a recent Angus Reid poll, nearly half of Canadians want the government to cut spending and present a plan to balance a budget, and Conservatives agree. Under our leader, Conservatives would bring in a dollar-for-dollar tax law that would require the government to find $1 of savings for every dollar of new spending. That would curb spending significantly and bring accountability to government. Liberals are always looking for ways to spend more money at the expense of Canadians. They tax, they borrow, and then they print more money. Conservatives understand how hard Canadians work for their money. Budget 2023 continues to tax Canadians to cover for the Prime Minister's out-of-control spending. The taxation needs to stop. Conservatives will not support this tax and spend budget. Speaker, the third thing that Canadians were looking for in Budget 2023 was a plan to bring homes to Canadians so that they can afford by removing government gatekeepers to free up land and speed up building permits. Home ownership has become a remote reality for Canadians wanting to enter the housing market. 9 out of 10 Canadians who don't even own a home say they feel that they likely never will. And under these Liberals, everything has doubled. Minimum down payment, doubled. Mortgage payments, doubled. Rents, doubled. Liberals have taken away what was once a proud milestone in the life of Canadians. Instead of parents visiting their kids' new home, parents are moving their kids back home to their basement in the house where they grew up. This is what happens when you have a Prime Minister who doesn't do numbers, who thinks economic growth comes from using your credit card, and who doesn't understand the real impacts of consumer debt. And what's the Prime Minister's response? Keep drowning, Canada. The dream of home ownership has been trampled thanks to these Liberals. We also have a housing shortage in this country, and according to the CMHC, Canada needs 3.5 million new homes that are projected to restore affordability. And there is no plan in Budget 2023 to address Canada's housing crisis. The Liberals have no plan to get homes built. Canada must bring homes people can afford by removing gatekeepers, freeing up land, and speeding up building permits. And a Conservative government would withhold federal funding from cities who refuse to remove gatekeepers. Affordable housing is not a priority for this Liberal government, and we cannot support a budget that doesn't address this. Speaker, on agriculture, a pillar of the Canadian economy, we see a Liberal government unwavering in their attempt to break the backs of farmers and compromise Canada's food security at home and abroad. The budget does nothing to address the rising cost of fuel, feed, fertilizer, transportation, and the energy that's necessary to grow and produce food. The sector has also been hit hard with the carbon tax, making food production more expensive and the cost of food even more unaffordable for Canadians. When the carbon tax triples by 2030, it will compromise a farmer's ability to make a profit, leading to bankruptcies and the exit of farmers from the industry, and that's already happening. The budget confirms that the Liberals' plan to reduce fertilizer use, which will decrease food production, will jeopardize our food security. And according to a recent report from RBC and the University of Guelph, the industry is set to lose 40% of farm operators to retirement in the next 10 years. With all the farmers retiring and no one entering the business because they can't afford to, we have a serious problem looming in Canada. And here's an equation that I hope the Prime Minister will understand. No farms equals no food. More and more family farms are closing due to the excessive costs of running them. Reducing fertilizer will surely boost the number of Canadians visiting food banks as their grocery prices continue to jump and due to a shortage of food supply. According to a study by MNP, the proposed Liberal reduction in fertilizer targets will cost the Canadian economy $48 billion by 2030. This is what a Canada run by an NDP ideology will look like: weak, gutted, and hopeless. Speaker, I'm sure everyone in the House has heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words. The budget is full of words. How can Canadians trust a government with a long record of waste? The $50 billion Arrive scam app, the $6,000 a night hotel room for the Prime Minister, a cabinet minister giving her friend a government contract, $100 million to McKinsey. It just doesn't stop. With government revenue expected to decrease, Canadians can expect a flood of new taxes for years to come under the Liberals. A constituent reached out to me with her views on what her country has become under these Liberals. Delaney wrote, and I quote, "We cannot afford our life. I don't spend any money beyond our needs, but it's to a point where I wonder how I will continue to heat my house for my family and provide healthy, nutritious meals for my kids. There is something seriously wrong with this country, and I am currently not proud to be Canadian. It's an embarrassment," end quote. Empty stomachs, unaffordable housing, high taxes, this is what 8 years of this Liberal government has done to Canada. And Budget 2023 does little to address the real issues Canadians are facing. I will not support this budget, and I'm proudly joining my Conservative colleagues in voting against it. Thank you.